Three. Thanks very much. Good night, everybody. Thank you. Fantastic.
Edit out the bad notes.
We'll fix it in the mix. You bet. Stephen Baigel playing a Milton David mandolin. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Just change of pace here at Mighty Fine Guitars. Thanks for tuning in. It's the Friday Noontime webcast. I'm going to be checking here momentarily and get Stephen to play another tune to make sure this is going all the different places on the web it needs to go.
That wasn't in the contract.
Oh, so it'll be an extra bump for you. A little extra something in your paycheck at the end of the week. So, introductions here. Stephen Baigel played that tune for us. Tour de la, if I'm not mistaken.
Two tunes. I don't remember what they were. The first one was "Give Me Your Hand."
Give Me Your Hand.
Which is an Irish waltz, but I took the waltz out of it mostly, I think. And then the second one was I'm forgetting the name. It was a jig.
Yeah, one of them jigs.
Yeah, it's one of those jigs.
Right,
It'll come to me before the end of the broadcast.
Okay, shout it out whenever it occurs to you. And this is Milton McClaskey, who builds under the name Milton David, if I'm not correct.
M. David Mandolins.
M. David Mandolins.
Yes,
there you go. And there's one. And Milton, would you tell us about what Stephen was playing there, the instrument itself?
Well, this is my 2-point version, I guess. My own sort of variation on that design. And this is a Claro walnut and Adirondack.
Yeah, let's see the back and front. Let's.
So there's the back.
Stephen, maybe Valerie could get a better shot. Sure. Thank you, Miss Valerie, for personing the camera and microphone again today. Thanks very much.
So the back.
Claro walnut.
Yeah.
There's a few different types of walnut, and since I have you here, I wanted to ask you about that. What's the difference? Is it location primarily the difference between Claro and Bastoni? I've seen both on guitars that come in the shop here.
Well, this is the only one this is California walnut.
This is the local stuff.
Yeah, this is the local stuff,
right.
And I get it, from small mills or whatever in Oregon and in California, and I haven't built a ton of these, but it's and I've used some eastern walnut, the black walnut, for early instruments, and I just love this stuff. I mean, it's beautiful, and I think it sounds good, and so early on I kind of experimented more with woods, and now I'm kind of limiting my sides and backs to Claro walnut and red maple.
Right,
kind of
right. I've got a bunch of Claro walnut guitars in the shop here, and they're fantastic. We're really fortunate. So many people for so long have thought, well, once the rosewood runs out and the mahogany runs out, there aren't going to be any more guitars built. There's tons of great woods out there besides those two.
Oh, yeah.
And Claro walnut. In fact, one of my favorite guitars in the shop, the one I always play in lessons, by a guy named DeLapp there's this whole clutch of builders up there in Davis and Winter, something in the water, I think. And he's built an OM in here that just is fantastic. So Claro walnut back and sides, and the top is?
Red spruce or Adirondack.
Adirondack spruce,
yeah.
Right.
And I've been a little promiscuous with, I'm not promiscuous, but the top woods. I started out using Sitka.
Yeah.
And then I got into some of the European, the Carpathian spruce.
Right.
And did a number of instruments out of that. And then, but people talked about Adirondack and wanting that, a brighter sound and whatnot.
Right.
And so, so I've used a little bit of that. And
how would you characterize then the difference in sound? We're getting right into the nerdery here, folks. It's getting deep, thick. It's getting thick, deep, quick.
Yeah.
Get deeper, get thicker.
That's right.
Yeah,
so you started off with Sitka.
Yeah.
And how would you characterize that as opposed to, say, Carpathian?
I don't really know, because I
Adirondack?
don't feel like I have. My history with music and with instruments is actually not that long, because I didn't start with music until really I was 38 years old. So, and it was a music camp, and I remember there was the Cazadora Music Camp, which is a camp owned by the city of Berkeley. And, it's run by a nonprofit, and so we found a flyer for that and wound up going there when the kids were little, and and I didn't play instruments, and I felt a little bit out of place there, but they had theater, and I did that. And then, but at one point there was a guy on stage, probably in his mid-40s. He was a CEO of some tech company. He had his hat on backwards. He had an electric guitar in his hand, and he was playing with a bunch of 11-year-olds on stage in beginning rock band. And I thought, but this guy, it's like, what have I got to lose? So
good for you.
So
That's
I started
great.
playing the guitar, and then I was traveling so much for work that I wanted something that I could take with me.
May we ask what you were doing? What your work was at the time?
Yeah, I was doing planning and whatnot for science museums.
Oh, cool!
Yeah,
really?
Project management and exhibition planning and whatnot.
Might go into 2 chapters, folks.
That's right.
Lots of questions about that. We may do an ancillary
So anyway, so then I bought a mandolin, and then it was a cheap, it was $165 Epiphone.
Yeah.
And I was taking lessons at the fifth string. And,
Oh man, rest in peace. Great
yeah,
shop.
And Tim, the guy said, he said, you just need a better mandolin. You'll have more fun if you get a better mandolin. And he started handing me these nice mandolins, but. I was thinking, like, wow, $7,000, right? They were like expensive.
That was the thing for the longest time. The gap is closing a little bit. There were the real inexpensive ones. I remember years ago when I was working at Griffin, there were really inexpensive ones like the Epiphones and whatnot. And then you had a swift jump up to multi-thousands.
Right.
And nowadays, it's a little different, isn't it?
Yeah.
With people like yourself, for example.
Yeah.
Which is great. That was a niche that was waiting to be filled for the longest time. Right.
So with the same thing, at the same time, they also had racks of books there, and and one of them was How to Build a Bluegrass Mandolin.
Yeah.
And so I saw that, and I thought, okay, So actually, the real expensive way to get a mandolin is to start building them.
I see. You didn't save a whole lot of money going this route, did you? I see.
No.
I see.
No.
Did you start off with a bluegrass mandolin? Did you build a couple of flat tops first, or
No, I
jumped
started
right
with
into the
that
carved
style.
top?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, it was Roger Simonoff who wrote the book, and he also had a company in, I think it was in Tuscadero or someplace. Where he built mandolin kits, and they're really high quality, very nice kits. And so I bought a kit. I bought the book, and then I bought a kit, and then I built 3 instruments to start with. So one of them was the kit, and then I used that as my reference to build the other 2.
I see.
And I had the parts, and so it was just kind of started from there. But it's just a little bit addictive.
Yeah, great. Had you done woodworking of any kind before?
Yeah, no. When I was young, when I was in my 20s, I had a cabinet and furniture shop.
Oh, I see. Wow.
So I had the background.
Oh,
in
yeah.
that.
Right. Okay.
But instruments always seemed like they were just too high a level and too hard. And
Oh, I know what you mean.
And I wasn't a musician, so it's like how. So.
Golly. I always joke, people say, do you build? They come in here and they say, you must be a builder yourself. And I say, what? No. I tried building car models when I was a little kid, and they were not great.
Right.
So I decided pretty early, I just didn't have the patience to wait for, I'd spray the thing and look beautiful, and I'd start putting it together right away. Oh, what the heck, let's keep going. Not a builder.
Yeah.
Congratulations, though. These are beautiful.
Thank you.
We got in touch through, I think through you. Were you the link between?
Not exactly. I had spoken to you about maybe selling some of my mandolins. Not that I build, that I don't play very much.
That's right.
And then I think it was just more coincidence and you and I might have talked about prior about maybe trying to sell your mandolins here, but it was the timing was pretty much right at the same time when Milton said he wanted to come by here and just maybe come with you. Yeah.
And Bruce Kaplan had told me that I needed to come and talk to you about this too.
Bruce and Claudia are the middle of lots of connections. They're connectors, big time. You bet.
So anyway,
this one you call, this model is
I call it my 2-point.
The 2-point.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's basically it's the Gibson F5 without the scroll.
Yeah.
I mean, all the other dimensions are basically the same.
I see.
So,
I see.
And the headstock is just a modified version of that.
Mm-hmm.
This peg head veneer is really a pretty one. This is a piece of madrone burl that's
Lovely.
actually from.
Yeah, let me show this.
One of the things I really like about Milton's mandolins is that he does take some chances by using other materials like the veneer on the headstock.
Mm-hmm.
Some of his mandolins, I don't know which one's that one. They're just beautiful. And you
This
don't,
one's sycamore, actually.
Really
you don't
lovely.
see that
See if we
very
can get a
often.
close up here. Ducky, am I zeroing in properly here?
Yeah, you don't see that on a lot of mandolins. People
No.
usually just follow the mold.
True fact. Yeah.
And he's a little more creative in that respect and takes some chances.
Really lovely. Sounds great. Stephen, would you play that one too?
So this one's quite a different instrument. It's a round hole instrument, and it's
How would you characterize the difference sonically? Yeah, Stephen, I guess that's to you. How would you characterize it?
Well, this
Difference in
is a
sound.
much brighter sounding.
Yeah.
This has, I think, a little more depth in its sound. It's got better low tones, more broad across the whole spectrum. Of course, this looks like it has very new strings on, which is going to make it brighter than it would otherwise. So it's just definitely a brighter mandolin.
Needs a little barbecue sauce, is what you're saying.
well,
But it still has that they're loud, which is good.
Yeah, yeah.
'Cause, one of the problems with mandolins, if you're playing acoustically with a lot of other instruments, is whether you're going to be able to hear it. Like sonically, is it going to come through?
Right, right.
And Milton's mandolins really do that.
So this one is also red maple back, which that's going to be slightly more reflective than the walnut. Though it's surprisingly that they're pretty close in density, which I think the eastern walnut is a little bit softer.
And this is more typical of what you find on the backs of
Yeah.
mandolins.
Yeah,
A lot of maple ones.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah.
Right.
And this one's got
99% of them, I
a
think.
bloodwood binding, which I learned why they call it bloodwood after you start using it.
Is that well,
It bleeds. It bleeds.
Oh, I thought
when
maybe you were bleeding.
No.
that's what I was
If you use it against maple, all of a sudden you'll notice you've got this red stain that kind of is spreading out
No
from it.
kidding.
Yeah,
Wow.
it'll.
That's the oil in
Yeah, yeah.
reaching out. Wow. Sure.
That was a surprise. So
One thing that's nice about these is that one, I was going to show on that one before, but they really sustain up high. Really
They
clear.
really do. Yeah.
Just really
Notice
leaves,
that too.
it's really even across the board. And
I don't know if you can hear it in the microphone, but it really has. You can hear the overtones pick each other up from string to string, and even again one string against the other of the pairs of strings. That's sustained. You can really hear it kind of propagate itself. It's really interesting. Yeah. Yeah. You bet. Great.
yeah, and these are your basic bluegrass chop
Yep,
forms. And this is not a bluegrass sound per se, but I think it would hold its own in a bluegrass jam.
Lovely. Isn't there another one floating around here somewhere?
well, I've got
Oh,
this one here, which is sort of my mandolin. This one has been played a lot more.
And we were just talking about that. An instrument that gets played improves. It's not hocus pocus, is it?
It doesn't appear to be. I mean,
Yeah. Oh yeah,
totally different
different.
sound.
You bet. You bet it is.
Yeah, again, it's just really clear tone.
You bet. You bet.
Really projects.
Hey, that ain't Irish. That ain't bluegrass. We were just talking about that too.
The Irish have get the blues sometimes too.
They get the greens. Yeah. And it's not. We were talking about this a little earlier. That it's not just Irish tunes or bluegrass that can get played on a mandolin. There's all different types of music that gets played on mandolins. Jazz and blues. Great blues mandolinists out there. It's got a broader voice than a lot of people realize from its reputation as being primarily a bluegrass instrument. With Bill Monroe first, then the next resurgence was
Probably David Grisman. And Chris Thiele.
and then Chris Thiele, right.
One thing about Irish, this is interesting. When I first started, because I was a guitar player, I played electric improvisational guitar for the most part, rock guitar. And I fell in love with mandolin. I was aware of mandolins, but it was actually after first hearing the first David Grisman quintet.
I know it. What an album. You bet.
And it just blew my socks off,
Yep,
and I had to
yep.
get a mandolin. But I can't play like that. I can't play that kind of music.
He's an alien. The man's an alien.
And I'm an alien from a totally different
Quadrant.
So I thought, well, what am I going to do? And I wanted to discipline myself, so I thought, I'll just start learning. I'll get some books.
Yeah.
And I'll just start learning Irish and old timey tunes,
Right.
just to give me a discipline. And then I just really fell in love with playing Irish. I mean, old timey as well, but I kept somehow going to the Irish side.
Yeah, sure. Lovely stuff.
And it wasn't until much later, after doing this sort of in isolation for years, I found out that, and also starting to listen to more of my Irish collection of music, that the mandolin is not very present in Irish music. It doesn't have a big tradition in Irish music.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, there's a resurgence. Like right now, we have Marla Fibish.
Marla, of course, you bet.
You know, and there's been a few other Irish mandolin players, but you know, you go to sessions. I was in Ireland in the early '90s for about 5 weeks, and I just went to session after session. I think I went to 30. I saw sessions in 30 out of my 35 days and nights.
Well done, well done.
And I saw not a single mandolin.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow, wow.
And you know, and going to the Starry Plough, I'd go and just listen, because even though I thought I had a pretty respectable number of tunes that I knew, repertoire, I'd go and I know that tune. 10 more tunes would go by. Oh, I know that tune. So I'm not going to bother playing. But what I noticed when you have a session, which is how traditional Irish music is usually played and presented, is that you have a number of fiddles, some tenor banjos, maybe some pipes, and then if there is a mandolin player, you can't hear it.
Yeah, yeah.
So
right.
I think that's maybe one of the reasons it doesn't pop up in Irish music.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's perfectly adapted to Irish music. I mean,
Sure, it's a fiddle, isn't it? You know, it's a fiddle without a bow.
it's perfect. It's perfect.
Yep.
But again, it's not that popular even today in Irish music.
Yeah, shucks, too. Well, maybe today we'll spark something. Oh, we have some questions. Why, yes. Yes, we can. Stephen Baigel.
With an I.
With an I. B-A-I-G. 2 of them. That's right. At least.
3 in this case.
That's right. 4, but who's counting? And Milton McClaskey, also known M. David, who's the mandolin company. Lovely. From Berkeley, both Berkeley gents, yeah? Am I right? Yeah. Right on.
We met at the KPFA Crafts Fair. So I had heard of Milton. Someone gave me his card from a previous year.
Yeah.
I guess it was 2 fairs back. I went, and I wasn't even thinking about it at the fair. There were some friends, and I saw a wall of mandolins. And I just went right there. And so we've been friends ever since. And it's been really great getting to know a luthier.
He's my player.
He's the demo guy, right?
But for me, it's been great to become friends with an actual luthier.
You bet.
See
You bet.
the process.
A real live one.
I are
We got a
one.
live one. You are one. You is one. You bet.
Yep.
Play another one, would you? You got another tune in there?
That's my whole repertoire.
That was it right there?
It's
Okay.
like,
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
I lost it. I knew this was going to happen.
It's in there. It's in there.
Run the tape back.
That's right. That's right.
It'll come around again, yeah.
Lovely.
That's called The Wise Maid.
The Wise Maid, sure thing.
Yeah, and usually with Irish music, it's in multiple parts, and you play the first part, you repeat it, the second part, you repeat it.
Right.
90% of Irish tunes are 2-part tunes.
Yep.
But you do have 3 and 4 and 5 and 6-part tunes.
Right.
And then they repeat it and go around a few times before they move on. Almost always presented as medleys.
Right.
So I just played the 2 parts singular. I didn't double them up, but just to get through it quicker.
Sure thing. Sure
So
thing.
you guys could keep talking.
And to show the range of the instrument, too.
Yeah, and and the thing about Irish music is it's generally played in first position.
Yeah.
So you have this whole fingerboard that you don't utilize. So, but if you're going to improvise around, it just holds its own all the way up and down the neck. So.
Great stuff. Any questions or comments out there?
Maybe you don't keep the table with the mic on.
Oh, okay.
That would be
Is that me? All right.
Okay, with the mic.
You mean this mic? Well, for those of you
Looks
just
like
tuning in,
R2D2.
this is he was called Yeti. It's got his own name. Thanks for tuning in, folks. This is Mighty Fine Guitars, the Friday Noontime webcast. Today we're featuring M. David mandolins, as demonstrated by Stephen Baigel, a couple of Berkeley gents. And if you got any questions, pipe right up. Miss Valerie, Mistress of the Machines, will fire them across to us. So for the science of it, Stephen, would you play a tune, the same thing, on 3 different instruments in quick succession so we can hear hear the difference. Sometimes people do that here in the shop.
Let's start with this guitar.
It's going to sound big.
It's going to sound big, yeah.
Sound too big.
No.
No? Not a good
Oh,
idea?
no. You want? Oh, I see.
Yeah,
Oh,
I was thinking of these three
I would
instruments.
hand them to
That was
you.
what I was thinking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sling them to you quickly. Play,
Okay,
play
some-
like an A and a B of something, and then an A and a B on a different thing. You know?
Or play the same tune? Or?
Same tune, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Just to be strictly scientific about it.
Too fast.
Beautiful. Quick, quick. Oh my. Each lovely in its own way.
Yes.
You bet. Wow, very different.
Very different. Yeah.
Holy
Yeah.
smokes.
So there's you can one for every member of the family.
That's why put yourself through the hell of choosing, folks? Pick them all up.
See, and
Except only two are for sale.
And of
here.
course, that's the big thing. How do you choose? You know, people are attracted to different tonalities.
Yeah.
Different, and sometimes even I make the mistake. I'll say, well, you know, this is a better sounding mandolin than that, and then I'll start playing that. And it's like, well, no, it's just different.
How about
It's
that?
just
Right.
different, you know.
Right. You bet.
Week to week and day to day.
And how do you choose? You know, what I always say is, at this level of building, you know, these mandolins and the guitars in the shop, it's a matter of what grabs you. I always call it the X factor.
Mm-hmm.
You know, instruments can be great. They can conform to specifications that you have in mind. They can be 1 3/4. You know, the guitars can be certain sizes and woods and configurations that you just have to have. But sometimes you'll be thoroughly surprised and delighted by the fact that something else will completely grab you, will choose you. Like, you know, in Harry Potter, the wand chooses the wizard. That's a real thing. It's that X factor. It's that stuff that you love about an instrument that you can't even articulate. That's the stuff that you're buying. So when you're considering an instrument purchase here or anywhere else, I'd say factor that in big time. There's what it's made of. That's great woods. You know, the building is beautiful. The build itself is beautiful. The specifications are what you think you require. But my goodness, sometimes you can be surprised and delighted by something. Like this, hearing 3 instruments, very different sounding instruments, all playing the same tune, all getting played by the same player.
Right.
On the same tune. It's about as scientific as you can get. So all I would just to say, as far as instruments here, just to take it back to MFG for just a sec, feel free to bring in your kind of reference instrument. If you've got something you sort of say, well, this is the one I have in my ear, let me hear that at the same time as something else in the shop. If you've got another mandolin and you're thinking of upgrading, bring it in and play it against the couple that we have in here. We should probably talk about numbers that go on these. These are both for sale here.
Right. Right.
And the numbers we have on them are
I think we're in 3,000 or
3-ish.
something like that.
That's right.
3,000.
3-ish for each. Right,
Yeah.
right. So 3 and 3,100, as I recall. I think this was 31, and that's 3.
The other thing is playability. You know, and one of the things is like all these have different neck thicknesses and sort of profiles.
Yeah, slightly.
And so sometimes it takes getting used to a thicker neck. Some are more what are called V-shaped, and some are
Yeah.
more C-shaped. The
Right.
V's have more of a point in the back.
Yep.
Yeah, like
And
this one, for instance, is a very sharp V neck on it, and I like that. You know, and it's kind of some of the old Gibson
Yeah.
A models and whatnot, or they had this kind of
well,
shape.
the
That's the
Lores,
feel in
the,
the-
the Lloyd Lores have just very distinct
and
V's
they're very,
as well.
Right.
you know, and I've gotten a lot more rigorous about, you know, the width of the neck and whatnot.
Yeah.
But the thing about necks too is that you can shape them, you know.
Right.
And I usually shape the necks kind of with the instrument, you know, sometimes with it strung up even to final shape it to get just to feel how it feels, you know. And but I kind of So some instruments, they're kind of like 1/16 or something, and generally at. But necks are also very specific to players.
You bet.
People
You bet.
like different necks, and they like
different fingerboards. Some people like a
fingerboards.
flat fingerboard, some
Right.
like a radius.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And one of the things for me when I play, whether it's a fatter neck or a sharper V neck, and I've got relatively small hands, but I can always adjust to that. But what always amazes me, it's really the response of the finger off the strings.
Mm-hmm.
Like with,
Well, the
these,
setup,
with
I
these
mean.
three, the setup, but
Right.
these three, like my fingers just bounce off of them.
Mm-hmm.
Where some instruments I'll play, it almost feels like there's gravity.
Getting stuck on there. Yeah, I know what you mean.
And so that's one of the things, tone obviously is important, but playability and just how well your fingers can
Yeah.
move
There
around.
must be a name for that. The French must have a name for that.
I'm sure they
feeling.
do. I'm sure they do.
We just can't say it on air.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, this is a family station.
Lovely stuff. Oh, a question in back.
About strings, favorite strings, and why?
Favorite strings and why is the question. Thank you.
Well, for a while, I think partly because I started with Simonoff, and and Roger's got a whole thing about strings and string tensions, and there's a lot of down pressure on the bridge of these things. It's like pick up a 5-gallon bucket of water. That's kind of equivalent to what the
Wow,
force you
really?
have on the center of this bridge. That's a lot of
A lot of pressure, you bet.
So, but also, the travel, the path from the string down to the soundboard. And if you look at violins, there's no direct path between the strings. They all have to go some way sideways instead of straight down to the soundboard. And anyway, but he wants, he's got this whole theory about how to, have it even from, even though the strings have different mass, to have the same pressure at each point. And so he's developed a set of strings he calls the straight up strings, and he's been probably in the last 4 or 5 years. So I've been kind of consistently using those, but instruments sound different with different strings. And
They do
so
indeed.
yeah, so
Yeah.
so some of them I've used some, I
But
tend
these
to
are
try.
these are phosphor bronze.
They're all
though.
phosphor bronze, yeah. And I've like this mandolin right now has got these flat wound Tomasic.
I wondered if it's
Very-
really different
very-
coloring string.
Very, expensive strings that should last a long time. I really like them on this instrument. For one thing, they're smooth.
Yeah,
you know?
right. That's
So
nice.
it's really nice
And
to
that's
play
sizzling.
on them,
Yeah.
And then I think different people use different ones. So it's Pierce that has, Dudenbassel only uses a very specific set of those strings on all of his
see.
instruments.
Yeah.
And but typically I have been, I think I've mostly been using the straight up strings.
Straight
on
up
these.
strings.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
And he only makes a medium and heavy weights, but on some instruments, if I don't hear the sound that I think I should be hearing, then I'll try different ones. And D'Addario
Sure,
makes beautiful
yeah.
strings, and sometimes they just. So I think instruments kind of sometimes, it's worth experimenting.
Absolutely
I mean, it's
it is.
expensive to experiment.
Well, it's a lot cheaper than a whole new instrument.
Yeah, it's true.
to get a whole new instrument in a
Right.
sense.
Yeah.
I always thought, because I play fingerstyle, I thought,
Mm-hmm.
well, I like mahogany-bodied guitars, and I like 80-20 strings, instead of phosphor bronze.
Mm-hmm.
And as it turns out, on both my guitars, they're both rosewood, and they're both, I'm using phosphor bronze on both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Even though typically, on a small body guitar, I like an 80-20 string. Is this too nerdy, folks? Are people clicking away here, going back to MSNBC and screaming at their screens?
And on my mandolins, I tend to just use the D'Addario J74s. They just work
Right.
fine for me. I had a J75s on one for a while, and it was just too heavy.
Yeah,
And
gotcha.
then I've got like a sort of what's called, this is a carved top of the flat iron pancake flat. And
Yeah.
they recommend light gauge, so I use GHS, I think 250s on that.
On a flat top,
Yeah, otherwise
yeah.
it's too much tension.
Too much tension, right. And this should be pointed out that even though this is a round hole mandolin, it's a carved top.
Right.
So it's not like the old flat irons you used to see with a flat top on it. That's a carved top.
Yeah, it's carved.
So it's got a lot of wonderful string tension pushing down on the bridge. It gives it that lovely, loud, clear, bright sound. Good.
This one's also, we didn't talk about, this is Alaskan yellow cedar at the top of this one. And I've
Interesting.
built a few instruments with it, and it tends to come up a little bit thicker than these. But
Yeah,
it's,
let me,
it's got a really interesting
show that to the
sound as well.
camera as well.
Yeah.
I wonder if we can get good light on this. Iron shot there. How about that? Lovely stuff. Oh, that's part of the charm, isn't
It
it?
is, yeah. It's like,
Oh
yeah.
man, got a nose head off guitars. Whenever a new guitar comes in here, what do we got here?
Sometimes that's lacquery.
Yeah,
I was going to actually.
that's good too.
I forget. Do you do lacquer? Or what do you do on the tops?
Most of these are true oil finishes, so they're just and it's a gunstock oil. Is what
Yeah,
it is.
right,
And,
right.
Yeah, it's a nice finish, and you don't have to have a spray booth and whatnot.
Exactly, all that
which
stuff.
I don't have. You know, I've been becoming more of a musician as I've learned how to build these, and I think, you know, it's a really handy thing to be a good musician, and, you know, there's a lot of good builders who are also good musicians,
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
you know, I've been kind of learning about both of those, but I had a head start on the woodworking part of it.
Clearly,
already.
right.
And so,
It's lovely work, really nice.
Well, thank you, and it's, but, you know, but I think the challenge is...
Oh, excuse me. Thank you. Why, yes. Way in the back.
Just another quick introduction.
Oh, another quick introduction, yes. It's something a little different today, kids. We're featuring mandolins built by Milton McClaskey and played by Stephen Baigel. And the brand name of these lovely instruments is M. David. And great stuff, great stuff. Was that what people wanted to know? And you know, we were talking about strings just a second ago. It occurs to me I should mention to you. There was we did an interview in here, the Royal We, did an interview in here several months ago with a gentleman named Terry Jones, who was developing a string that had a different way of binding the windings onto the string. Spoke to him recently at a Quitter show down at Danville Music, which is a great shop. Doing a show down there, and had a chance to talk with him. His strings, if you were wondering, because a few people have asked about this in the interim, his strings have been picked up by Black Diamond. Black Diamond is going to be reissuing strings under that name, using his technology of binding the windings to the strings. And we had quite a. You can find it back in the archives here on the Mighty Fine Guitar page. I don't think on the Stevie Coyle page, but on the Mighty Fine Guitar Facebook page, you can find that interview with Terry Jones. And it's real interesting stuff. So just wanted to update you on that while we were talking about strings very briefly. Very cool.
And one thing, just very briefly, picks.
Right.
I found that a lot of people find that because of the tautness of the strings and the double strings, that thick picks, this is 1.5, in this case, work a lot better than the thinner picks. Like I find that on guitar, I like a thinner pick. Mm-hmm. But I like a pick with the mandolin that just doesn't give at all. So it has a really good response.
Exactly. You're not waiting for the pick to restore to
There's none of that.
flexion.
And I tend to like more rounded edged picks.
Yeah. Is this a particular flavor, or have you rounded that yourself?
No, this is by vegan. Yeah. And these are actually marketed as mandolin picks, and they come in different thicknesses. In fact, yesterday,
Just two, actually.
Oh, two,
Just
yeah.
the ones and the 1.5.
he gave me a 100 yesterday. I gave it back to him.
It's the lightweights.
Lightweight,
Too
yeah.
light.
You know, and some people like the points, but you know, one of the things with mandolin, not that I have the best technique, but you want to be brushing across on an angle because
Yeah.
you got two strings.
Right.
And you want to angle it and not come straight down, because otherwise
Click, click.
you'll end
Yeah.
up just hitting single strings,
Right,
and you
right.
lose the whole quality of what the mandolin offers you.
Yeah.
So I find by angling it down into an edge and using a rounder point, you get a fuller sound.
And the Uyghurs have a bevel in them, don't they?
Right.
Yeah, they come right-handed and left-handed bevels.
They do. So it's kind of worn in already. It's
Yeah,
all-
and they last a really long time.
yeah.
I mean, they're just
if you don't
really
lose
amazing.
them.
Yeah, exactly.
I've lost
Golly.
one. I lost one in your shop. Luckily, I think you found it.
That's,
And I lost one at his house.
See,
So-
picks should all be. Remember those picks back in the. I remember in the '60s. I think you can still get them. They're all kind of. The Fender picks were pink and gray and green and white, all scumbled up together. They called them clown barf.
Right, I remember Clown Mark. Yeah.
Those are great because it's tough to lose
was
them. You
their
can drop them on
marketing
something. Yeah, spectacular marketing term. Absolutely.
Was that back when picks were like 3 for 25 cents?
Oh my gosh, you bet. Yeah. Those ones were absolutely.
Now you can get a blue chip for like $35 for one pick.
Cranky.
Yeah.
Do you know Marla? I played. You were talking about Marla Fibish, wonderful mandolinist, wonderful Irish mandolinist in particular. Plays in a duo now called Noctambule. And years ago, I was in a band with her, and one night she lost her pick. We were doing a rehearsal, and she lost her pick. And if you can imagine, there were 4 or 5 of us down on our knees, going over the place, and we were digging out. We were using lighters, to see by, and little flashlights. And it was in the days before the ubiquitous, Swiss Army phone that did everything. And as it turns out, it ended up in her. I don't remember if it ended up in her shoe. It had bounced off the floor and landed in her shoe or in the cuff of her jeans. But that was a very strange evening. We made a party out of it. We had a very nice time doing it. But we all went home very sad that the pick had gone to wherever those other socks go, to that realm. And then later on, she called us up and said, no, I found it. It was in my shoe or in the cuff of my jeans or whatever it was. So, happy ending. Well, thank you, gents. Good heavens.
Well, thank you.
What a lovely time. Once again, Milton McClaskey and Stephen Baigel and M. David Mandolins. There are a couple of them are available here in the shop. This one and this one are for sale right here for $3,100 and $3,000. Totally cool instruments. Play us out, would you? Good night, kids.